Mr. Palme, it's very good to meet. Can I straight away say that I heard, I can't say I read, but I had translated to me one report that our conversation was going to be some vast confrontation on my part, and may I say straight away that for anyone who's actually hoping for that, they're going to be disappointed, because all I'm looking forward to is a very pleasant conversation, and indeed very pleasant chairs that they must have picked to make me feel at home, because I have these in my lounge at home. It's just a conversation as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I'm very glad to see you too. I read for my part in the newspaper that I was so afraid that I demanded to censure the program afterwards. That is definitely not true.
Right, so that anything you see at home of this program, or anything we do here, you will see at home. So there, now everybody knows that. It's very good to meet. I wonder, how would you describe yourself? I mean, in the sense that if you were being met at a railway station by somebody, and it wouldn't be anyone in Sweden, but who didn't know what you looked like, how would you describe yourself over the phone to them? You'll easily recognize me. How would you describe yourself?
Well, I don't look at myself so much in the mirror, so I would probably describe myself very neutrally by saying I'm wearing such and such a coat.
Ah, you're cheating. What sort of people do you admire? Who, looking around the world, Sweden at the moment, who would you say you admire?
I admire people who are steadfast in their basic ideology and who are prepared to do a very hard and tiresome and tedious work to put their ideas through.
And if you had to name the names, who would you pick?
Well, one person I admire that you might not know, our former Minister of Finance, Mr. Ernst Wigforss, who just is a perfect example of this.
Anybody, I don't know him, you're quite right, but anyone I would know that you would add as an example of that?
I was, in many ways, I liked Hugh Gaitskell very much in England. I met him on several occasions, and although I didn't agree with him on many points, I liked his character.
As you look back at your life, I mean, and you've got a lot to look forward to as well, but as you look back, what would you say is your greatest achievement so far?
On that, I haven't thought so much. I think, well, that my achievement that I've had the privilege to work in a movement to put through certain big reforms, the pension reform, school reforms, an extension of the public sector and active employment policy. I mean, it's the privilege of having been part of it and playing a role in this.
What about what you look back on now as your greatest mistake? Is there one episode that, if you could, you know, you'd like to rewrite?
I've made very many mistakes. Even on television I was in your role in interviewing once, an opposition leader. It was a very bad interview from my point. It was a typical mistake. And I've been mistaken in my judgment on different things. I can't enumerate them right now.
A lot of people got very fussed and angry over your taking part in that anti-US in Vietnam march. Do you feel that was a mistake, or are you glad you did that?
I'm glad I did it. It was definitely not a mistake. And it was, and the great mistake that people think is that it was an anti-American demonstration. I've read that in the US press. It was not at all. There's a great difference between anti-Americanism and a strong criticism of the American policy, the American war in Vietnam.
Yes, it was certainly a presumably anti-American policy. That it obviously was, wasn't it?
No, this was a very responsible demonstration where Christian organizations, labor unions, teetotal organizations, and even youth movements of the opposition parties took part. What we demanded was peace in Vietnam. And the criticism that we expressed at that demonstration, I think was held by the majority of the American people also if you can judge the Gallup polls. And it can possibly be anti-American to have the same views as the majority of the American people.
Den här David Frost-intervjun såg jag i någon tidning, den var uppgjord. Han var för snäll mot dig.
Ja, det var ju...
Det var för att backa upp dig.
Ja, det var ju en ren anka. Redan av det skälet. Att det var ju 3-4 personer som var tillfrågade innan mig som av olika skäl inte ställde upp. Och det skulle ju vara en ganska riskabel manöver att förutsätta att de skulle säga nej. Så det var ju alldeles fel.
Jag har sett honom på hemmaplan. Där är han mycket elakare än han var när han snackade med dig.
Jaså?
Jaså, ja.
Nej, jag har inte sett honom på hemmaplan så
nej.
Jag har ingen kommentar.
Det här med din nya frisyr. Har du någon tv-regissör?
Icke alls, utan det var en frisör som konstaterade att jag hade 4 stora virvlar som endast kunde bemästras om man klippte håret ganska kort. Och det var ett gott råd och det har följt.
Someone compared you with President Nixon the other day to me. They said that President Nixon used to have an unfortunate image on television and now was very good on television. And they said that you were the same, that you used to be less good on television and that you'd now changed your style and you were marvellous on television. Did you deliberately change your style?
No. Well, to say the truth, a little bit, yes. I discovered that it was a completely different medium, that you have to be a little bit more careful with your movements and so on than on the radio. And that was a very slight change, but that I've done.
That I've done. The new Palme, as they say, as opposed to like the new Nixon.
I'm afraid it's very much the old one.
Who do you think will be the new Prime Minister of Sweden?
I don't know, because it's up to the party congress in September to decide, and I don't know who will be.
What do you think are the most important qualities a Prime Minister should have in Sweden?
First of all, the confidence of his party. And of the team he gathers around him. But the team aspect is very important. I think the Anglo-Saxon tradition, you have a president, you have a prime minister, who's so very much a leader. In Sweden, I think the prime minister is one of a team. And the most important thing is to lead that, be effectively part of that team. Not to stand above it.
Some people have mentioned to me Mr. Strang as a possible Prime Minister. Does he have all those qualities, do you think?
Yes, he did so.
Pardon?
Yes, very much so.
Do you think he'd make an excellent Prime Minister?
I think so, very good.
Can you think of anyone else who would make as good a Prime Minister as Mr. Strang?
It's difficult to say. I mean, you can't judge anybody before he's in the job. Probably there are others who would, although they, at the moment, would not have his enormous experience.
Of course, I assume that you would like to be Prime Minister, because any politician would.
No, I think that's also an Anglo-Saxon tradition. I have no wish.
We're ambitious and you're unselfish.
No, not at all. It's a difference of the system, where the Prime Minister and the President have this very particular position. I have no wish at all. I'm perfectly happy to be a member of the team. And to deal
but don't
with
you think that anyone who goes into politics, I mean, not because they're a power-crazy, tyrant or anything, but if you go into politics, you must want to get to the top. Just if you become an architect, you must want to be the top architect, mustn't you?
Yes, but if you're a very fine television personality, you need not necessarily wish to become the chairman of the BBC. Perhaps you're perfectly satisfied with another role.
You might not be prepared to take the cut in salary, for instance.
No. I mean, if you come into politics, you want power, naturally, because that's your only chance of doing something. But you can always, there's limits to your ambitions. You find things that you do better than others, and you choose that position if you can.